2014 Volkswagen Tiguan. Gonna do the water pump. First thing we need to do is get the intake manifold off. So go underneath and you want to remove that clip off of this tube assembly right here. It just fits in there, a little groove. You just get a pick and you pick it off, and then you can push this out. Okay, and then you want to get a T27 and pull that bolt loose. It doesn't come off of the tube, it stays in there, but just make sure it's loose. There's another one a little bit farther up that needs to come off. You get that from up on top. Now there is a bolt on the bottom of the intake, a stud with a nut on it that we need to get to, but I can't see it from underneath at the moment. So now we undid those two things, we're gonna lower it down. Need to remove the engine cover, get the oil cap loose, pull the cover up, held on by some little tits. Goes in these little grommets and put some lube on them and they go back together. Put the oil cap back on. Some little dirt falls in there. Alright, get this off. I need to get this off. There's a little clip right here, clip right there, and a clip right there. Pull this up off of there. Now you can remove the top air filter box, and it uses T25 most likely. And then remove this clamp with your pliers and undo your mass airflow sensor, and you can remove the upper air cleaner housing. You can't figure out the Volkswagen connectors. I always forget, but now I don't. Alright, flat blade screwdriver, not one that's got squares on it. Stick the medium flat blade in here. And that hole right there. And just push it up a little bit. And make sure this connector is pushed down inside there, and you'll hear it click. And I'll push mine back on. I can hear it click. Hear it click. Once it goes past that, then you can pull the connector off. Okay? You don't want to do it too much, and you'll end up cracking it. But you want to make sure you push it in all the way so it doesn't have any tension on it when you pull on it and you can't get the connector off. That means there's tension on it. So then you push it on and you can undo it. And now you need to remove this whole air filter box. There's another Torx right here. It's a T30. Undo that, and then you got another little grommet stud right there. Pull that off of there. Now the whole thing is loose, and you got a vacuum line, coolant line going over the top of it. So you need to do is pick it up and undo it. Next you need to do is remove this. It's got two T25s going in through the side, through this way. Remove them, and have to lose them. Alright, then you want to undo the breather tube. You gotta squeeze this together and pull it off. Got two little knurls on it. Okay, you want to squeeze that so it releases those clips on the side. You can pull this off and you can swing it up, and you can get a better grip on this one. And do the same thing, squeeze the knurls and spread them open and pull this off. Then you want to remove the fuel line. Make sure you get on this clamp straight with your pliers. If you go sideways, no go. Same thing with this one. So you want to do this fuel line, pull it out of there, pull it up aside, out of the way. Get this line off your evap, undo your little clip here, get this one up out of the way. Okay. And then next, you can undo this vacuum line that goes to your valve for your throttle plates. And when you get it going back together, you want to make sure this has plenty of vacuum to it, so it actually works. This goes through the solenoid. And some of these have problems with the solenoids not working and causing these not to open up the throttle plates that are inside the intake. All right. All right. You got 3 connectors down here. Got this green one. Get your little screwdriver in there, push that down. This one you can use your finger, pull it off, and you want to slide this one off of there, off of that holder. Just slides right off. And you got this one. Use your screwdriver, stick it in there and push it. And then this one's on the top, this one's on the side. This one's on the side, like that, and this one's on the top. Those are those nice ones. Put the screwdriver in there and then you push it down and pry it down, and then that's what undoes it. You hear it clipped and you can pull it off. Come over here to the throttle body. Undo the 2 on the throttle body and undo this one on the evap solenoid. Okay. Now you can undo the intake tube off the throttle body. That's a 7mm for that clamp. Loosen that up. And then down here, right there, is another one of those T27s that hold that tube on down below for the intake tube from the intercooler. Just like the one we did in the beginning down below. Loosen that up. Then you can grab hold of that whole tube assembly and pull it off the throttle body. Okay, you got the intake tube off of the throttle body. So right now the only thing holding on up inside there is that there's a sensor, air intake sensor down there, down below, that's connected to that tube. Okay, then you need to remove 2 of these T27s, one right here and one that goes here from down below. Got those loose. Okay, getting closer here. And then we'll need to undo this line. Get those ones you gotta squeeze together. Squeeze this one and the one down below together. And you can pull that off. You can disconnect this cam sensor right here. Push that in and you can pull it off. Then you want to remove this oil filter. That'd be easier to undo this. You want to take this clamp off, that nut, take that nut off, and then you can move this thing around a little bit better. Then you also want to remove this bolt there, or screw. It's a T27, and that goes to the high pressure fuel pump. And you want to undo that one. That's a 17mm. On this particular model, you need to remove these 2 screws. Go in here, one there, and one there. So when you pull this nut off, the whole thing comes off. So you need to take that up, and then you need to undo this fastener for that electrical line. Okay, that one. All right. Next, you want to remove. Well, what you want to do is break them loose first. The T30s on the intake. There's 5 of them on the top. There's 2 in the center, and there's 2 10s. 1, 2 10mm bolts, and they're on 2 studs. Break them all loose, and you can remove them all. You have to push that wire harness down right here and go through here, and then the other one you go through here. And it's right below the little T for this one. Okay, you got the 5 bolts on the top out, and you got the 2 in the middle loose. You don't have to take them out. And you got your 2 10 nuts off, and right down here, going into right there. See that thing right there? That's like a little rubber mount, and it's got a stud on it, and it goes into a bracket. What you need to do is remove that nut from underneath, or the bracket. But on this one, somebody already did. They removed the bracket. So I don't have nothing holding my intake onto the block. All right, so now all I need to do is remove my intake. These intakes are really hard to get off because the injectors go into the cylinder head and they're really tight. So you need to like shake it up and down, maybe get something in there to pry it away a little bit from the head. use something like this. You get inside here, pry it up on the intake, pry it out a little bit. Just do it a little bit. You don't want to crack it. And just keep wiggling it back and forth, and you'll eventually get it. Okay, mine's loose now. Sometimes the injectors stay in the head, like that. That one stays in the head, that one didn't, and that one didn't, and that one did. So now you gotta reach down in there and you gotta unplug it. Okay? Unplug that one and unplug that one. Or unplug whatever one's yours stayed in the head. Okay? So we need to unplug them. So the harness stays with the intake. Okay, I got my injectors unplugged. They have a little tit on the bottom of them. I'll show you that in a minute as I get it out. But I wanted to show you this. There's one more connector staying on it, and it's right there. Right here at the end of my finger. That connector. You need to stick your little screwdriver in there and pry that little piece down and then pull it off. Okay, after you got this one disconnected, and then you gotta come over to the right side and disconnect this solenoid for the vacuum line for the actuator for the throttle plates. Okay? Undo that one. And now you got the whole assembly out. Oh yeah, and this line here that goes over here below the oil for the oil pressure switch, that gets in a little fastener on the intake also, so you gotta undo that when you're undoing this. There's the intakes. Injectors, there's two of them. And we got these. Hopefully the other ones aren't damaged or anything. Those are new improved. So we'll have to go ahead and get the other ones out of the head. What you gotta do is twist them and pull. And spray a little penetrant down in there to soak into the carbon. Okay, here they are. You can put these back in, put some Seal Glide on your O-rings and push them back in there. Just make sure that these little plastic clips ain't broke. You want to clean off your little pintles. Clean them off with a little wire brush, make them look nice. Don't have to sit on them too much with the brush. And you can replace your intake gasket, inspect it, and see if you had any problems with it in the past, or with my two bolts, and see how it is. Another thing you might want to do is put some vacuum onto your thing here and see if those things move while you got the intake off. See if they move freely. Pretty decent. And then just suck on the hose. Working. So if you have any problems with it, it's going to be that this solenoid, vacuum solenoid. Put it back in. Okay, I'm going to show you the connector. Right there, that little one. You push that one in with your finger and release it. Okay. You want to clean out your injector, your holes, injector holes. Make sure they're clean. You want to clean off your intake area, off your cylinder head. And these pieces, they have little tits sticking out and they just pull right out. They only go in one way. If yours are really full of carbon and shit, you can soak them in some cleaner, clean them up, and then you can put them back in. See the little tits I talk about stick out? That one's broken, but they only go in one way. Okay? They'll go in, but they don't go all the way in. Alright? So we'll take them off, we'll let them soak a little bit, and that way I can clean up my surface. And then next we'll work on the water pump. Next you want to remove this wire harness, push it over here, mark the way the wires were looped, mark the looms and the wire connector. See, like this one, it looped around this way and then went right here into a connector. Now unplugged the harness from here. So now I got it all the way off of there, and I took it off the oil pressure switch. So I got that all the way over here. Next you want to remove is this tube. Undo that one, probably a 27. And down below, there's another one of them bolts on this right here. Take that one out. And then undo your line off of here, hose clamp. Wiggle it off of that one. Then you can pull this whole tube off of there and then push it over here out of the way. Okay, it's out of the way. Came right off. Get a little screw went right there. You can always look at your new pump, see how everything looks on it. Next you need to do is remove this hose, which means you gotta do this clamp right here. Take that clip out of there. We're gonna push this one off, and then you can do the same thing to the next one down below. Okay, you got the hoses off. Make sure you put your clips back inside of them so you don't lose them. Next you want to remove these two bolts. The long one goes there, short one goes there. It's like a little fan cover. Here's a little fan and there's your belt. Okay? What you can do is you can take the belt and you can slide it off. I might have to do it when I do the water pump. I don't remember. A little bit at a time, it'll come off. If you want to replace it, you got to take that nut off that gear down below and then fish it all out of there. I'm not going to replace it. Alright. Now I think there's 1, 2, 3, 4, there's like five bolts holding this thing on. And then undo them all, come off a little bit, and then come off like that because there's a dowel that goes inside here with 2 O-rings on it. That's what comes with your kit, hopefully. There's 5 of them. It's a T30. So once you got all 5 of them out, you got one down here, one there, one there, one there, and one right here. 5 of them. And then you grab it and you pull on a little bit. Make sure the belt's loose. Grab, pull on a little bit. There's some dowels on. Get it off the dowels. Pull it to your left. Wiggle it a little bit. And then you got the pump off. That's the pump. Pump and housing. Okay? And here's the little dowel I was talking about. Spool, I guess. Okay. Now what you need to do is clean this up. Make sure that the dowels stay in the block. Clean up your dowels so they don't crack your new one. Clean all this up. And then get ready to go back together. Here's the new pump. Put the seal on your sensor. Put some seal glide on it. Push the sensor in there till it bottoms out. And you can push this little clip in there. You squeeze these together and they push this on there. You push it down so they clip into the little grooves. Twist it out of the way so you're not in the way of the bolt holes. Put your little spool in there. Put some seal glide on the O-rings. And then put some seal glide on your seals. And that's how it looks. So then when you go put it in there, make sure you put it in there like that. Feed this into the cooler first, and then push it up against the side of the block. Make sure you get your dowels in your holes. And then have your bolts ready to get them started, and your little tool to start them. Okay, and that's a the T30 bolts. T30 socket, okay? Okay, get the water pump lined up, get the spool in there, push it so it gets onto the dowels a little bit and pull it off a little bit. Have your bolts sit in there ready to go. Put your belt on. Got that ready to go, and then just guide it onto the dowels and then start your bolts. Okay, got all the bolts snugged up. Now you need to torque them to 15 foot-pounds. Alright, and then after you get done with that, make sure your belt is on there properly. And now you can put your hoses back on. Remember the two lower hose, put this hose on and then this hose. You can put a little bit of seal glide inside the hose and the seal. Your pump kit comes with new O-rings for those hoses if you want to replace them. Okay, put your belt cover on. Remember you had the long one and the short one. And you got your two lower hoses on there. Now you need to put this tube in there. Put some seal glide on your O-ring. Put your rubber hose on that one. Put your clamp on it. Put your bolt in there. Put a bolt in down below. Alright. And then now we need to do is get our wire harness over here and get everything routed properly. Got the wire harness set up best as you can. Got this piece bolted, clipped onto there. And this one goes over the top from underneath. Got it in this little bracket. This one's sitting there, goes into the intake, that goes onto that. We got these two here, ready for the intake. Got your coolant sensor plugged in. And this one goes into here, goes to that. And you got this one that plugs in from underneath. And this one underneath. This one goes to the, remember that vacuum solenoid. This one goes over to the oil pressure switch. And you got these. It goes to the throttle body. So we need to get the intake over here. We need to plug that one in and this one in. And then put the intake in. Make sure you blow out these, make sure there's no debris stuck in there. Get your new gasket on there. I put a little bit of seal glide on it to give it a little bit of, so move around a little bit. I'm gonna put a little bit of anti-seize on our tips. And then I'm gonna guide it in there onto the studs. And I'm gonna connect my connectors and then push it in. If you got that bracket, might as well take the bracket out because it's a real pain in the butt to work with. You know, you want to hose the intake up on the bottom of the block. Before you put your intake on, make sure you put those throttle plate dividers inside there. Okay, place the intake down there. Plug your connector in down below and plug your other connector in down below to the solenoid. Guide that stud onto that little sleeve tube. Same thing on this side, the stud onto the little sleeve tube. Stick your hand down there and you feel it. And then look down your bolt holes. And you gotta kind of like guide that intake down inside there so those injectors go into the ports of the cylinder head. And once they get in there, you'll slowly slide it in and then push it in. And then now you can start your bolts. Might be a good time now to start this thing. It looks pretty close, going right on there. So just get that started. Now you can put your bolts in there and your two nuts. 5, 2, and 2 nuts. Alright, intake bolts are all in there. Got them all snugged up. Then you want to torque them to 8 foot-pounds. Okay? And then let it sit like 15 minutes. And then retorque them. Alright? So now you can put this put this together. Put your little rail back up here with your little bolt with the screw on it. Get that started, and then put these two in there and run them down, and run that one down. And then put this little bracket on there for your fuel line. Put that one in there. Finish tighten up your 17mm nut on your fuel line. Tighten that up. Then you want to bring this over here, and you want to put this one in, this one, and that one. Remember, that one goes up through the bottom and goes through the side. Okay, put your green connector back in that bracket and plug it in. Don't forget to plug these two big ones in. This is the big one and this other one. Make sure they clip in, pull on, and make sure they don't pull off. Plug your throttle body back in, throw the other one back in to the intake, and plug this solenoid in. Make sure you plug this one in, put it in this little fastener, and put your vacuum line on, your evap. Hit the fastener, close that up. Put your fuel line on. Squeeze the clamp. Put the clamp at the end of the hose. At the same time as you're squeezing the clamp, push it on. All right. Everything else looks decent. Make sure you put this line on. After you get it running, take this line off and see if there's any vacuum coming out of it, coming from your vacuum pump. Put your oil filter on, tighten it up. All right, that's pretty much everything there. Then we got to work on this tube from the intercooler going to the throttle body. And then we got to screw that screw in down there, and then got to raise it up and do the one from down below and put the tube on the intercooler. All right, I put on the intercooler first. Make sure you put the clip back in there properly, and make sure this pushes in and stays in. Put your screw in. Now we'll lower it back down, and I'll do everything from on top. Okay, got the hose on the throttle body, tighten the clamp, tighten my last screw down here. All right. If you're wondering about that, nothing goes on there. All right, now we gotta put this tube on and make sure it clips in. And we can put our air cleaner box back in. Okay, put this back in there. Got the two screws. Remember, this thing loops in there underneath this coolant line. Spots on there. Pushes down on a little grommet. Put this bolt in there, the T30. Then you put your air filter on and you put the air intake tube on. Okay, air filter assembly is back on. Clamp is on. Mass airflow is plugged in. All right, put some coolant in it. Start it up. Once you get it started up, double check that line down there. Make sure it's got vacuum coming from the vacuum pump. All right. Because if it don't have vacuum, then it's going to set your codes for that throttle plates. All right, so you got your coolant in there. Start it up, get it warmed up, and keep adding your coolant in until it's fully warmed up, and then you're all set. And then it's running good, and that's awesome. Just if you got some problems, then you need to check it out. But otherwise than that, this is how you do the water pump, and we're all set. So if I helped you out doing the water pump, that's great. If you help me out by subscribing, I'd really appreciate it. If you already had, I just want to thank you.